Look at your morning. Honestly, the alarm goes off, and within 30 seconds your phone is in your hand. Before you have had a single thought of your own, you have already absorbed somebody else's emergency. By the time you sit up, your mind is full of inputs you did not author. And by evening, you cannot quite remember what you actually thought about, because most of what passed through your head was reactive, not chosen. This is not a personal failure. It is the predictable result of living in an environment specifically engineered to take your attention before you can spend it. The cumulative effect, invisible day to day, devastating over a year, is a life that feels busy and somehow not yours, productive and somehow not meaningful, full and somehow empty. 21 days is not a magic number. The popular claim that it takes exactly 21 days to form a habit is a misreading of an old observation. But 21 days is useful for a different reason, and it is the reason the Stoics would have endorsed. It is long enough to move a practice past the stage of novelty and into the stage of difficulty. It is long enough to encounter the day when you do not feel like doing the thing, and to find out who you are on that day. The 10 Stoic habits in this video are not arbitrary. Each one targets a specific failure point in the way most people move through their days. Commit to them for 21 days, genuinely, and the claim in the title is not an exaggeration. You will not recognize yourself, not because you will have become someone new, but because you will have removed enough of the noise to finally see who was there underneath it. This is a longer video than usual, because these habits deserve to be explained properly, not as a list to skim, but as a set of practices to actually understand and use. So settle in. Let's begin properly. Welcome to Logostoic. What you are about to hear is not a motivational challenge. And it is not for everyone. It is for the person who is done being lived by their phone, by their schedule, by the accumulated demands of everyone else's agenda, and ready to begin reclaiming the only territory that has ever actually been theirs, their own mind, one day at a time. If that is you, like this video, subscribe to Logostoic and stay for every part of what comes next. Every piece matters, and these 10 habits build on each other. Skip one, and the architecture collapses. So settle in properly. And if you are ready to stop drifting and start authoring your days, leave a comment right now with these 4 words, so the people watching alongside you know they are not alone in this work. I author my days. Now let's begin. Habit 1. Begin each day by deciding who you will be before the day decides for you. Most people begin their day in a reactive posture. The alarm sounds, and within minutes they are already responding, to messages, to news, to the first demand that reaches them. They have not yet had a single deliberate thought of their own before the day has begun shaping them. By the time they are fully awake, the day already has momentum, and that momentum was not chosen. The Stoics began differently. Marcus Aurelius opened his day with a practice that the tradition calls premeditatio malorum, the premeditation of difficulties. He would tell himself, before anything else, what the day was likely to contain. Today I shall meet with interference, ingratitude, insolence, disloyalty, ill will, and selfishness. To a modern ear this can sound bleak. It is not. It is preparation. A mind that has rehearsed the difficulties of the day in advance is not ambushed by them when they arrive. It meets them as expected features of reality, rather than as personal affronts. But the practice has a second half that is just as important, and most summaries leave it out. After acknowledging what the day will bring, the Stoic decides who they intend to be within it. Not what they will accomplish, who they will be. Patient, honest, unmoved by provocation, useful. The morning is not for planning the day's tasks. It is for setting the day's character. Because the tasks will change, the schedule will be disrupted, the plan will not survive contact with reality, but the decision about who you intend to be can hold through all of it. The practice for the next 21 days. Before you touch your phone, before you check a single message, take 3 minutes. Name, honestly, the difficulties the day is likely to contain. Then name the qualities you intend to bring to them. 3 minutes. No phone. The order matters. The intention must be set before the inputs arrive, because once the inputs arrive, they set the intention for you. This is the foundation. Every other habit in this video is built on top of it. If you are committing to setting your character before the day sets it for you, leave a comment so the morning ahead has a witness. I set the tone first. Habit 2. Choose one discomfort each day, before the day chooses one for you. Seneca, who was one of the wealthiest men in Rome, practiced something his contemporaries found strange. Several days each month, he would deliberately set aside his comfort, eating the plainest food, wearing the roughest clothing, sleeping on a hard surface, and ask himself a single question: is this the condition that I feared? The answer, he found, was reliably no. The feared thing, once voluntarily entered, lost its grip on him. The principle underneath this practice is one of the most useful in all of Stoicism. The person who has only ever experienced comfort has a nervous system that treats the loss of comfort as an emergency. They have no evidence, no lived, bodily evidence, that they can function without the conditions they have come to depend on. And so a surprisingly large amount of their behavior is quietly organized around not losing those conditions. They are, without naming it, governed by the fear of discomfort. Voluntary discomfort dismantles this. When you deliberately choose a hardship, a cold shower, a skipped meal, a walk in difficult weather, a workout that genuinely demands something of you, you are not punishing yourself. You are gathering evidence. You are demonstrating to your own nervous system that the loss of comfort is survivable, that you remain functional and clear on the other side of it. You are not training your tolerance for cold water. You are training your relationship to difficulty itself. The practice for the next 21 days. Each day, choose one deliberate discomfort. It does not need to be dramatic. It needs to be genuine, something your comfort-seeking mind would prefer to avoid. Do it without negotiating with yourself. And afterward, notice Seneca's question answering itself. Was this the condition you feared? It almost never is. If you are choosing the hard thing today, instead of waiting for the easy day that never comes, leave a comment so your decision becomes real. I choose the hard. Habit 3. Install a pause between what happens and how you respond. Epictetus taught that the space between an event and your response to it is the only place where your freedom actually lives. Everything before that space, what happens to you, is largely outside your control. Everything that flows automatically after it, the reaction that fires before you have thought, is not freedom either. It is conditioning. Freedom exists in the gap, and most people have allowed that gap to collapse almost entirely. The third habit is the deliberate reconstruction of that gap. The Stoics understood that the difference between a reaction and a response is the presence of a pause, a moment, however brief, in which the governing part of the mind examines the impulse before endorsing it. The impulse arises, to snap back, to refresh the page, to say the cutting thing, to reach for the distraction. Without the pause, the impulse becomes the action directly. With the pause, there is a checkpoint, and the checkpoint changes everything. This is not about suppressing your responses. It is about authoring them. A person who pauses before responding is not less expressive or less decisive. They are more so, because their responses are now genuinely theirs rather than automatic discharges of whatever the moment provoked. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself constantly that he had the power to hold no opinion, to not be disturbed, to wait. That waiting was not passivity. It was the exercise of the one freedom that could not be taken from him. The practice for the next 21 days. Pick one recurring trigger, a particular kind of message, a particular person, a particular situation that reliably produces an automatic reaction in you. For 21 days, every time that trigger occurs, insert a deliberate pause of 6 seconds before you respond. In those 6 seconds, ask one question: what response will I respect tomorrow? Then respond from there. You are not managing your temper. You are rebuilding the gap where your freedom lives. If you are committing to the 6 seconds that separate reaction from response, name it here so the next provocation finds you ready. I pause before I react. Habit 4. Hold a genuine examination of the day before you sleep. Seneca described his nightly practice with unusual precision. When the light has been removed and my wife has fallen silent, he wrote, I examine my entire day and go back over what I have done and said, hiding nothing from myself, passing nothing by. This was not a diary. It was not a record of feelings or events. It was a self-conducted trial, an honest accounting, every night, of whether the day had been lived according to the standard he had set. The fourth habit is this evening examination, and it is the natural counterpart to the first. The morning habit sets the intention. The evening habit checks it. Without the evening examination, the morning intention has no accountability. It is a wish released into the day and never followed up on. With it, a loop closes. You decided who you intended to be. At night, you find out, honestly, how close you came. The examination has 3 movements, and the order matters. First, where did I fall short of the standard I set this morning? Not to generate guilt. The Stoics were explicit that guilt without correction is merely a comfortable form of self-indulgence, but to generate information. Second, where did I hold the standard well? This is not self-congratulation. It is the equally important practice of noticing what worked, so it can be repeated. Third, what specifically will I do differently tomorrow? The examination ends not in judgment, but in a concrete adjustment. The practice for the next 21 days. Before sleep, spend 5 minutes in honest examination. 3 questions written down. Where did I fall short? Where did I hold the standard? And what will I change tomorrow? No self-attack. No self-flattery. Just the accounting of a person serious about the gap between intention and behavior. If you are willing to look at the day honestly before you close it, write it here so tonight's accounting has a starting point. I review without flinching. Habit 5. Practice the deliberate inversion that turns anxiety into gratitude. There is a Stoic practice that sounds, on first hearing, almost perverse: the deliberate contemplation of loss. The Stoics would regularly imagine losing the things they valued most: their health, their work, the people closest to them. To a modern reader trained in positive thinking, this looks like an invitation to anxiety. It is, in practice, almost the exact opposite. Here is the mechanism. The human mind is built to adapt to whatever it has. A good thing, once possessed for long enough, stops registering as good. It simply becomes the unremarkable background of life. This is why people can have genuinely fortunate lives and feel almost nothing about them, while remaining acutely sensitive to every small thing that is missing or wrong. The mind adapts to what is present and fixates on what is absent. It is a recipe for chronic, low-grade dissatisfaction in the middle of objective abundance. The Stoic contemplation of loss interrupts this adaptation. When you deliberately imagine the absence of something you have, genuinely picture your life without it, you briefly dismantle the mind's assumption that it is permanent and guaranteed. And when you then return your attention to the fact that you do currently have it, it registers again. It becomes visible. The thing that had faded into background becomes, for a moment, vivid. This is not anxiety. It is the restoration of gratitude through the temporary, deliberate removal of the illusion of permanence. The practice for the next 21 days. Once each day, take one thing you have and currently take for granted: a person, your health, your work, your home, and spend 2 minutes genuinely contemplating its absence. Picture the life without it, then return to the fact of having it. Let it register. This is the inversion that turns the mind's adaptation from an enemy of contentment into a tool for it. If you are ready to see what you have before you lose it to lose it, leave it here. I see what is already mine. Habit 6. Protect the first hour from the world's agenda. The 6th habit concerns a specific and underestimated form of erosion: the way the modern world colonizes a person's attention before they have had any chance to direct it themselves. For most people, the first act of the day, often within seconds of waking, is to open a device and allow a flood of external information to enter. Messages, news, notifications, the accumulated demands and stimulations of everyone else's agenda. Before they have formed a single intention of their own, they are already full of everyone else's. The Stoics did not face smartphones, but they understood the underlying principle precisely. Seneca wrote about the importance of withdrawing into oneself, not as a permanent retreat from the world, but as a daily practice of protecting the conditions under which genuine thought becomes possible. Epictetus warned against allowing the mind to be jerked around by every external impression. They understood that a mind which is never given quiet is a mind that never produces anything of its own. It only processes what arrives. This habit is the deliberate protection of the first hour of the day from incoming information. Not the whole day. That is neither possible nor desirable. Just the first hour. The hour in which the tone of your mind is set, in which intention is either formed or surrendered, in which you either begin the day as an author of it or as a respondent to it. The hour is not protected because the inputs are evil. It is protected because the inputs, allowed in too early, take over the function that should belong to you, deciding what the day is for. The practice for the next 21 days. For the first hour after waking, allow no incoming information. No phone, no email, no news, no messages. Use the hour for the habits already described. Defend this hour. It is where the day is either built or lost. If you are reclaiming the first hour from the people who profit from owning it, mark it here. The first hour is mine. Habit 7. Use the view from above to restore perspective when the day distorts it. The seventh habit addresses a specific failure that the others do not directly target, the way proximity distorts scale. In the middle of a difficult day, problems acquire a size that has nothing to do with their actual importance. A minor setback, viewed from close range, fills the entire field of vision. A small conflict feels like a catastrophe. The mind, pressed up against its difficulties, loses all sense of proportion. Marcus Aurelius had a practice for exactly this, and scholars have come to call it the view from above. He would deliberately shift his perspective upward and outward, imagining his own life, his own situation, his own pressing problem, seen from a great height. The city below becomes small. The individual conflict becomes one event among countless others. The span of his own life becomes a brief moment in the immense stretch of time. Think of the whole of existence, he wrote to himself, and how small a part of it is yours. This is frequently misunderstood as a practice of diminishment, as if the goal were to make yourself feel insignificant. That is not it. The goal is accuracy. Proximity does not show you the true size of your problems. It shows you an inflated size. The view from above does not shrink your difficulties below their real importance. It returns them to their real importance, which is almost always considerably smaller than they appear from close range. And a problem seen at its actual size is a problem you can think about clearly. The practice for the next 21 days. Once each day, ideally in a moment when something feels overwhelming, deliberately perform the view from above. Picture your situation from far above, the building, the city, the country, the turning planet. Picture it in the span of years rather than minutes. Then ask, what is the actual size of this? Respond to the actual size, not the inflated one. If you are willing to see your problems at their real size instead of their inflated one, write it here. I see it from above. Habit 8. Choose one virtue to pursue each day, not the whole list. In the first book of his Meditations, the most private document of his life, Marcus Aurelius did something striking. He listed, person by person, the specific quality he had learned from each of them. From his grandfather, gentleness of temper. From his father's memory, modesty and a manly character. From his teacher Rusticus, the recognition that his character needed improvement and discipline. The list goes on for pages, and what is remarkable is the precision. Each person contributed one thing. Each thing was named exactly. The Stoics understood something about character development that modern self-improvement consistently misses. You cannot pursue all virtues at once. The person who decides to become more patient and more disciplined and more honest and more generous and more courageous all in the same week is not going to become any of these things. They're going to feel briefly inspired and then quietly fail at all of them because the mind cannot hold 5 conscious targets at once. What it can hold is one. Just one. Pursued seriously for a defined period until it begins to settle into the structure of who you are. Then another. This is the 8th habit, and it is the one that most directly applies the Stoic method of self-development, depth before breadth. Pick one virtue. Live with it. Notice every moment in your day that touches it. Notice when you hold it well, when you fall short, where it is tested, where it is easy. Let the focus of attention sharpen until the virtue becomes a lens through which you see your own behavior. Through that focused attention, the virtue begins to develop in a way that scattered general intention never produces. This is the difference between someone who wants to be patient and someone who is becoming patient. The practice for the next 21 days. Choose one virtue. Patience, honesty, discipline, generosity, courage, whichever one you most need right now. Hold it as the single point of focus for the full 21 days. Write it on a card you see each morning. At your evening examination, ask about that virtue specifically. 21 days of focused attention on one quality will move it further than years of vague intention on all of them. Name the one virtue you are pursuing for the next 21 days, not 5, not all of them, one, and let it be visible here. One virtue. This one. Habit 9. Eat one meal a day in silence, without any input. There is a habit that sounds almost trivially small and turns out, in practice, to be one of the most revealing daily practices in Stoic discipline. Eat one meal a day in silence. No phone. No screen. No book, no music, no conversation. Just you, the food, and your own mind. For most people in the modern world, this is more difficult than it sounds, and the difficulty itself is the practice. Musonius Rufus, the Stoic philosopher who taught Epictetus, wrote at length about food as a domain of philosophical discipline. He understood eating not as a trivial daily mechanism, but as one of the most reliable tests of self-mastery a person performs every single day. How you eat, whether you are present to it, whether you treat it as fuel or as performance, whether you can sit with yourself during it, reveals the state of your relationship with the simpler facts of existence. A person who cannot bear 10 minutes alone with a meal is a person who has organized their life to avoid being alone with themselves. The silent meal does two things at once. It restores attention to a basic act that has been hollowed out by constant input, returning the experience of taste, of presence, of the act of nourishment to the foreground. And it functions as a small daily test, a controlled environment in which you discover, repeatedly, what it is like to be alone with your own thoughts. Most people discover, in the first few days, that they cannot do it for long without reaching for something. Stay with the discomfort. The discomfort is not a sign that the practice is wrong. It is the practice. It is showing you exactly where the dependency lives, which is the first step toward loosening its hold on the rest of your day. The practice for the next 21 days. Eat one meal a day in complete silence and without any external input. Phone in another room. No screens. Notice the food. Notice the thoughts that arise when there is no longer anything filling the space. Notice the impulse to reach for input. Do not obey it. The meal is enough. If you are willing to eat one meal alone with yourself today and find out what is actually there, leave it here. I eat in silence. Habit 10. Practice Amor Fati on the one hardest thing of the day. Amor Fati, the love of fate, is one of the most demanding ideas in Stoic philosophy, and one of the most easily turned into a slogan that loses its meaning. The Stoics did not mean that you should pretend to enjoy hardship, or perform gratitude for suffering, or talk yourself into believing that everything happens for a reason. They meant something more precise and more useful, that the moment something difficult has actually happened, and is no longer avoidable, no longer reversible, already past, the only intelligent relationship to it is to ask what it now offers, and to engage with what comes next rather than rejecting what has already been. This is the 10th habit, and it closes the daily architecture. The evening examination has shown you where you fell short. The view from above has restored proportion. The morning intention is waiting tomorrow. But there is one more thing the Stoics did before sleep. And it is this: they identified the single hardest moment of the day, the conflict, the failure, the disappointment, the thing that did not go as planned, and asked deliberately what it might be teaching, requiring, or making possible. Not as denial, not as silver lining therapy, as precision. The practice is not about being grateful for bad things. It is about refusing to let difficulty waste itself. Every hard day contains information about where you are not yet what you are trying to become. The Amor Fati reframe extracts that information, deliberately, before sleep, turning the worst moment of the day from something that happened to you into something you used. Over 21 days, this practice produces a person who is no longer afraid of difficult days, because they have learned how to make them produce. The practice for the next 21 days. At the end of each evening examination, pick the hardest moment of the day. Sit with it briefly without rushing past it. Ask one question: what does this give me that I could not have gotten otherwise? Then write the answer. The question must be answered honestly, not with motivational language. The answer is rarely dramatic, but it is almost always there if you look. If you are ready to stop wasting hard days and start using them, write it where the next hard day can find it. I use what happens. 10 habits. One for the start of the day, and one for its end, closing a loop of intention and examination. One for the body, one for the gap between event and response, one for the recalibration of gratitude, one for the protection of attention, one for the restoration of perspective. One for focused character development, one for the disciplined return to presence, and one for the conversion of difficulty into use. Together, they are not a random collection of self-improvement techniques. They are a complete daily architecture, a structure that touches the morning, the afternoon, and the evening, and addresses each of the main points at which an unexamined life quietly goes wrong. Take any one of them away, and the architecture has a hole. Practice all 10 consistently, and the architecture begins to hold the kind of person you have been trying to become. The claim in the title, that after 21 days you will not recognize yourself, is not marketing. But it is worth being precise about what it means. You will not have become a different person. The Stoics did not believe in becoming a different person. What you will have done is something more interesting. You will have removed enough of the noise, the reactivity, the unexamined drift, that the person who was always underneath becomes visible and operational. The 21 days do not add something foreign to you. They clear away what was never you to begin with, the borrowed reactions, the unchosen habits, the patterns you absorbed without consent. That is what the Stoics meant by self-mastery. Not the construction of an impressive new self, but the steady, patient, daily clearing of everything that stands between you and the deliberate, capable, clear-minded person you are entirely able to be. 21 days is where it begins. It does not end there, but it genuinely begins. 21 days do not add something foreign to you. They clear away what was never you to begin with. That is the real promise of these 10 habits, not transformation into someone new, but the steady removal of everything standing between you and the person you are already capable of being. If that idea genuinely landed, then the work ahead of you is not complicated. It is simply daily, and daily is harder than complicated, which is exactly why it is worth committing to. If this video gave you something real, something more substantial than the usual advice, then consider liking it. Not as a small reflexive gesture, but because a video like this, longer and more demanding than most, only reaches the people who need it if those who valued it help carry it there. Every like is a genuine act of passing this on to someone who is ready to do the work. That matters more than the algorithm. It matters because somewhere there is a person who needs exactly these 10 habits and will only find them if you help. And then, leave a comment and make it a real one. Write down which of the 10 habits you are committing to first and the specific day you will begin. Not someday, a date. Because the Stoics understood that an intention which is never made concrete is not an intention at all. It is a comfortable feeling that fades by morning. Naming the habit and naming the day is the smallest possible act of genuine commitment, and genuine commitment is the entire difference between a video you watched and a life that changed. 21 days from that date, come back and tell us what is different. We will be reading. Subscribe to Logostoic, because these 10 habits are one part of a much larger body of work this channel is dedicated to building. A serious, practical, unflinching engagement with how a human being can actually live well. This is not a place for empty comfort or borrowed motivation. It is a place for the genuine article. If that is what you are looking for, you have found the right channel. And we would be glad to have you for the rest of the journey. May you commit fully, practice honestly, fall short without despair, return without drama, and discover, 21 days from now, that the person you were looking to become was standing inside you the entire time, waiting only for the noise to clear.